Hello, welcome back to my channel. In today's video, I am going to be doing the mid-year book freakout tag, and I am very excited to do this video. I decided on this very last second. I was planning on posting a different video today, and then this video idea struck me as I saw 3 different freakout tags in my subscription box today, and I was like, you know what? I'm gonna do it because I feel like I have books to share with you that I've never talked about before, and or I am just excited to share some of the gems that I found throughout the first 6 months of the year. It feels so weird that we're at this point, and I don't feel like, generally speaking, I've read that much that I'm excited about, but there are a few books that I just feel like I haven't gotten the chance to gush about. None of them are It Happened One Summer by Tessa Bailey, so I think we should all be excited about that. Sorry if you can hear Pepper grooming himself in the background. He has the loudest mouth of all of the boys, but I'm just gonna run through these questions and kind of share my thoughts and feelings on some of these books, and hopefully you can find something new and exciting to read from what I'm sharing. The first question is, and I'll leave all of these in the description down below if you want to participate in this tag as well, or if you want to share in the comments any of your answers to these, I would love to know. The first one is the best book that you've read so far in 2022. And this was kind of challenging for me because I've only given a couple of books 5 stars, and the majority of the 5-star reads that I've given have been books that I've already read previously. Of the 2 5-star reads that I've read this year, I think my favorite is The Roughest Draft. I adored this book. I've talked about this one a couple of times here on my channel, so I don't want to belabor the point, but this story, in my opinion, is what book lovers could have and should have been. This story really focuses on our hero and our heroine who have this past, so I guess it does have a little bit of people we meet on vacation sprinkled in. These two were an author duo. They've been very successful in the past together. We don't really know what their prior history was. We don't know if they had a romantic relationship or what, but we do know that they had a little bit of a falling out. They have to come back together to satisfy the rest of their writing contract. I think they were commissioned or whatever to make 3 books. They only wrote 2, and now they're coming back for their 3rd book. They're having to basically be in very close quarters, stay at a house, I think in Florida together, and work on finishing this book. The idea for the book, I want to say, is about a divorce or something, and so they're kind of having to relive some of their feelings and emotions for each other, even though they're not married and getting a divorce, through their writing. And there is a sex scene that they have to write together, and the tension was off the charts. I just feel like when you're offering this kind of plot line and actually delivering on it, love to see it. I just feel like with book lovers, I really wanted them to have more scenes editing together and more scenes together in general. This isn't a comparison, I guess. That's not what the question's asking, but I just feel like if you didn't love that book, but you wanted to love that book, maybe pick up this one instead. I really adored it. I give this book 5 stars. It elicited a lot of emotion out of me, which is kind of rare. If you are a frequent viewer of my channel, you probably already know that, but I really like this book and I highly recommend it. Be forewarned, it is very angsty. If you're looking for a summer fun rom-com, this isn't really that, but it is set in the heat of the summer and it does have that delicious, juicy angst that I am always looking for. The next question is the best sequel that you've read so far in 2022. This was kind of a challenging one for me as I was scrolling through my Goodreads because I don't read a lot of fantasy or what I consider to be series, but I did realize that a few of the romances that I read that can be read as standalones actually were the 2nd or 3rd book in a series. And for me, I think the one that stood out the most is Eyes on Me by Sarah Kate. This is the 2nd book in the Salacious Player series. I feel like the series is getting a lot of hype and a lot of love, especially over on Instagram and Book Talk, but I really liked the 2nd book. I think I like it more than the 1st one. To be fair, I've only gotten 50% into the 1st book, but the 2nd one is so fun. It really balances honestly a lot of hot explicit sex scenes with a lot of really raw emotion and feelings. I think our hero is suffering from depression in this book, and we do get a little bit of background and history on his depression and or what he's trying to do to help himself going forward. And I also like that our heroine is dealing with some stuff and is trying to kind of figure out what she wants as a career and figure out what she wants going forward. I don't know, I just love this story. I feel like the sex scenes again were really hot. I feel like it's rare that I say that I enjoy the sex scenes in books. I feel like most of the time sex scenes in books, for lack of a better word, are serviceable. They're not something that I feel like is very standout or very interesting, and I feel like a lot of times if there are way too many scenes present in a book, I can find it a bit of an overload, but I feel like the ones in this book were creative and interesting and I think contributed well to the relationship that was being formed in the story. So I really liked this book. I highly recommend it. I think the Salacious Players Club series in general was sort of a breath of fresh air that I really didn't know that I needed, and I really like this book. Question number 3 is a new release that you haven't read yet but are excited to read, and I actually have 2 for this one. One is a book that was on my most anticipated list of 2022, and then one is a book that I just feel like is super hyped and is something that I feel like I need to get to. So the first one is My Killer Vacation by Tessa Bailey. I feel like this is kind of a no-brainer. It's sort of a sexy murder mystery is what I've been told. I actually don't really know much about this book. I am planning on reading it this weekend on a trip that I'm going on. I feel like it's the perfect book to read while on vacation, fingers crossed. So I'm very excited to read that one and vlog the experience. And then the next book that I'm really excited about is Every Summer After. This one gets so much hype and it's being compared, I think, to The Summer I Turned Pretty but for adults, which I'm down for. I'm very down for it. I love a good summer summery, like angsty story. The last time I asked for like mutual pining angsty romance recommendations, y'all said this book really fits the bill, and so now I'm like even more excited about it. Again, this is one that I'm hoping to get to pretty soon. I think I have it planned for some sort of vlog coming up. I don't know which one, but like it's coming. I'm gonna read it very soon and I am very excited about it. Number 4 is most anticipated release for the second half of the year. This one is a little more challenging for me because I feel like a lot of romance releases tend to happen in like the spring and summer months, understandably, but Ruby Fever by Alona Andrews comes out in the latter part of the year in August. I have an ARC or like an advanced reader copy of the story and I'm so excited about it. It's the 3rd book in the Catalina series, I want to say. It is Catalina, right? Hidden Legacy series by Alona Andrews is like one large overarching urban fantasy series, and I absolutely love these books. The first trilogy is about Nevada Baylor, the second trilogy is about Catalina, and I think the third one is about the 3rd sister. And I say Catalina, maybe Catalina's the 3rd sister, but I'm pretty sure she's the 2nd sister. Anyway, this is the 3rd book in her series. I think I'm probably gonna have to go back and reread the first 2 in her trilogy, but I'm so excited for Ruby Fever. It is the kind of like conclusion to that trilogy, and we've been waiting for this one for so long that I am just so excited to get to read this one. And again, I'm probably gonna read that vlog sometime, maybe like an exclusive reading vlog, like just one book, one video, so that people who like want to be spoiled or don't want to be spoiled can opt in or out, but very excited for this one. Number 5 is biggest disappointment, which I am so excited to talk about because I've had, I feel like, a lot of stinkers this year, which kind of sucks. I made a fairly extensive like most anticipated romances list for a video, and a lot of them have kind of sucked. So I'll tell you the 3 that I think were the most disappointing of that list. I haven't even finished reading all of the books off of that list, and I'm hoping there's no more disappointments. The 3 that I have, and I'm looking at my phone because I like took notes and wrote out my answers. The first one that I have is Twisted Hate by Anne Huang. This one kind of sucked for me. I didn't really like the lying portion of the story. That's on me, I guess, like not really fully understanding what I was getting into going into the story, but I just didn't really love the interactions between the hero and heroine. It was supposed to be enemies to lovers, but the interactions felt a little bit too corny for my liking. And your mileage may vary. If you're really into enemies to lovers, you might absolutely adore the story, but it just wasn't totally perfect for me, and I don't like the way that the heroine lied to the hero and the way he reacted as a result of that. It just wasn't really for me, which sucks because I really liked the first 2 books in the series, but that being said, I'm going to read the 4th one when it comes out, I think in a couple of weeks now. But yeah, that one was definitely a dud for me. Another one that didn't work for me was Reminders of Him by Colleen Hoover. This one I kind of saw going one of 2 ways, simply because I either love or hate Colleen Hoover books. This one I actually just didn't have any strong feelings about. I really didn't care about the romance in this story. I felt like it was a little bit half-baked, and I don't really feel like our heroine like learned a lot, except for that people suck, but then sometimes they'll completely change their mind and be nice people. I don't know, I just don't feel like there was that same Colleen Hoover signature, like, here's a moral question, let's kind of figure it out. I don't know, it was meh for me. And then the last book that was kind of disappointing for me was Things We Never Got Over. This one wasn't on my most anticipated romances list, but it was one that I kept seeing on Instagram, and I was like, small town romance, it's indie, I'm gonna love it, and I just didn't. I felt like the interactions between hero and heroine didn't work. He was too much of a dick, and enemies to lovers, like, it's something that I feel like I'm slowly starting to like less and less, because I feel like authors are just kind of like jumping to use that trope and then not doing it in a way that I feel like is in service of the trope or in service of the romance. You're just getting a guy who's kind of an asshole for no reason, and then a heroine who just kind of puts up with it. I guess it's also kind of a take on the whole Grumpy Sunshine thing, but anyway, that doesn't really work for me, and this story just ultimately wasn't for me. The next question is favorite new author, either a debut author or a new to you author, and for this one I picked Reputation by Lex Croucher. I didn't know this, but apparently Lex Croucher has like a fairly popular YouTube channel, which I think is kind of fun. This romance is a historical kind of take on Mean Girls / Gossip Girl. I really liked the story. I feel like there were some definitely darker elements, so definitely look up trigger warnings, content warnings before picking this one up, but I just really liked the kind of snarky charm of the story. I really liked our heroine. I feel like she really was like a modern day Jane Austen character, like a modern day Emma almost. Kind of a bitch, but sort of fun, and she ends up learning throughout the course of the story, and I just really liked the hero. He definitely was giving Knightley vibes, so I don't know, I'm not saying you need to pick this one up, but like, perhaps pick it up. Definitely a new favorite author, and someone who I would not hesitate to pick up new books from in the future. I think she has another historical coming out soon, maybe it's historical, I'm pretty sure it is, but I definitely will be picking that one up. The next question is one that I had way too hard of a time figuring out, and it is newest fictional crush. I don't feel like I found any new book boyfriends this year, sadly. Like, I'm hoping that happens as the year carries on and as I read, hopefully, some more indie romance. But the character that comes to mind right now is a book that I finished literally yesterday, and you will see a vlog on this one coming soon, is Below Zero by Ali Hazelwood. Sadly, I can't even remember the name of the hero. I want to say it might be like Ian or something. He was a fucking delight. I really liked him. He, in my opinion, was the perfect kind of alpha hero. He protects our heroine and he definitely looks out for her, but he's not a dick. or at least I didn't find him to be a dick. Your mileage may vary. I do feel like there's a sort of hotly contested plot point in this book about the way our hero handles a certain thing, but I really enjoyed this novella. I feel like in general this novella was just fun. I ended up giving it like 4 stars or something like that, and I just love the hero. I love that he was kind of like unaware of his own charm and sexiness. I like that he was ultimately like, he knew what he wanted from the relationship. He didn't want it to just be like a one and done thing, and he slowly over time convinces the heroine that like she should take a chance on him and she shouldn't just like try to jump into bed with him. Not that there's anything wrong with having that sort of relationship, but I liked that he knew what he wanted from her, and I liked the way that he treated her ultimately, so I thought he was a sweetheart. I also like love a redheaded hero, so highly recommend. The next question is very similar to this one. It is newest favorite character, so not a crush, just a character. And for this one, I'm gonna do Alexandra from Something Wonderful. Something about Judith McNaught's heroines just do it for me every single time. I love the way that she writes her characters typically. Sometimes the heroes can be a little bit hit or miss, but I love that the heroines are always so strong-willed, have such an attitude, and also have some like negative traits that I don't think are seen very often in historicals nowadays. She is not hesitant to make a character sort of bitchy or have some like flaws beyond their like beautiful appearance and their like fun zest for life. She sometimes makes these characters a little bit unlikable, and I kind of love that. Like, I love how real the heroines feel in her stories, and Alexandra is no different. At the start of the story, she's pretty young. She instantly catches the attention of our hero. He is not really interested in her in like a sexual sense, because she is, I think, like 16 or 17, but he just finds her personality really charming, and she is like hellbent and determined on making him like her. It's kind of a separation for a while as she like grows up, but whenever he comes back into her life, she's like, you know what? I'm gonna show you what you're missing. I'm amazing. It creates a lot of tension and a lot of fun, and I really enjoyed their relationship. I thought it was delightful, and I really like her as character, so she's definitely my favorite new character this year. The next question is books that made you cry. I'm gonna skip over this one because I don't have any books that made me cry this year. I do hope at some point that a book elicits some emotion from me like that, hopefully a romance and not like some sort of sad literary fiction thing. I'm hoping to not pick up any literary fiction for the rest of the year, but nothing's made me cry so far this year, I think. Okay, I realized that I completely skipped like one of the middle questions. We're gonna go back to it right now because this book, the biggest surprise of 2022. How I forgot to answer this one when, in my opinion, it's arguably the most interesting answer of all of them. I don't know. But my biggest surprise of 2022 so far was Part of Your World by Abby Jimenez. Now, if you watch my channel often, if you are a frequent viewer of my channel, you might have noticed a theme and a pattern in that I do not like Abby Jimenez romances, which sucks. I always go into them with the best of intentions. I'm excited to read them. The beginning is always promising, and then they really piss me off about midway through. And I always give them like 2 stars, which sucks because I want to like this author. I want to like her books. I want to see what other people see in her stories. And this one, y'all, this was a 5-star read for me. So again, I can't remember the names of the 2 characters in the story, but we have our heroine who is a doctor, and she is separating from a man who was pretty abusive to her for the majority of the relationship. He was a guy who frequently gaslit her and just emotionally abused her. As she starts going to a therapist and starts seeing these behaviors, she ends up separating from this guy. They're not married, thankfully, but they were living in the same house, and so she has to kind of like deal with him trying to continue to live in this house even though she wants nothing to do with him. One day she ends up, I don't know if she gets in like a car accident or what, but she ends up in this small town, meets a really charming woodworker and or owner of like a historic Airbnb, and they sort of like fall into a little bit of a relationship. He is, I want to say, in his late 20s. She is, I want to say, 40-ish. I loved their relationship. I think this story does what I wanted Abby Jimenez stories to do from the very beginning. It definitely pulls on the emotions and the heartstrings, but I think it goes in a direction that is healthy. We get to see our heroine really realize that the behaviors and the patterns that she accepted from the guy that she was with really stemmed from her relationship with her parents, and especially her father. We get to see her kind of heal from some of the wounds and the trauma and make a way for herself and get to fully live her life to the fullest, and we get to see a hero who does the same. He has his own kind of like emotional trauma and baggage he's dealing with, but getting to see these characters come together, support each other through the hard things. I get emotional just thinking about it. Actually, wait, did I cry at the story? I think I might have. I think on my period when I was reading this book, so that could be part of it, but there's just so much good here. I think if you are not hesitant to go into a story about some harder topics like the ones that I definitely just mentioned, I would pick this story up because I just feel like the romance was fucking swoony and it was supportive, and I wanted to see these 2 get together so badly. I wanted to see them work out, and when it did, it just, it felt so triumphant. I think romance so often is like fun and sexy, and like at the end you're really happy, but there was something so triumphant about the story and getting to see our heroine like grow throughout this course of the story and get to like get what she finally finally wanted. I loved it. It was a big surprise for me. I'm so glad I loved this story. I'm so glad I could recommend it to you, and I hope that if you pick it up, you enjoyed it as much as I did. But this was definitely like a high point of the books that I've read this year and was one of like 2 5-star romances that I've had. So yes, love this one. Highly recommend. Now to talk about books that made me happy. That is the next question after we've kind of skipped around a little bit. I have 3 on my list actually. First is Falls Boys by Penelope Douglas. This book made me happy not because the book itself was like particularly upbeat or exciting or fun, which I mean, I guess it was kind of exciting and fun, but I think what made me so happy about this book is knowing that, I don't want to say Penelope Douglas isn't done for me, but I just have not enjoyed the past few stories that they have put out, unfortunately. I feel like the plots have sort of taken over instead of romance. Like I need an even balance and or the scale to lean more heavily to romance than plot, and I just feel like the plots have been getting convoluted and complicated in ways that don't really excite me. This one, I think, really redeemed Penelope for me. I just really connected with the story. It felt so comforting to come back into a world that I'd already read about. I loved seeing like the new challenges and issues between beloved characters and new characters. And overall, it was just a fun time reading it. I felt like this was the perfect book to read in summer, and I'm really ready to read the second one, which I don't know if it comes out this year, but if it comes out in the fall, that would be pretty incredible. Anyway, I love this book. I had a really good time reading it, and I thought it was really fun, so it did make me happy. Another book that really made me happy was If You Change Your Mind by Robbie Weber. This book just made me happy. It was a queer summer rom-com. I feel like it really touched on topics that I don't feel like are discussed enough in young adult stories. I just feel like oftentimes we either get someone who totally doesn't know what they want to do with their life, or someone who is type A and is going to go exactly where they say they're going to go. And it's fun to see a character who really knows what they want and yet kind of figures out new things about themselves along the way, their senior year of high school. I just thought this was fun. I also really liked the romance and how I really didn't know who Harry was going to end up with at the end of the book. I was like, there's too many good contenders here. There's too many amazing guys in this one small town. So anyway, I really liked this book. It really did make me happy. And if you are looking for a YA rom-com, or you are just someone who reads YA in general, I would pick this up. It's good. And then another book that I kind of already touched on, so I'm not gonna like belabor the point, is Something Wonderful by Judith McNaught. Anytime I pick up a Judith McNaught story, I smile. I just love the way her characters interact. Even if the romances can at times be toxic, there's something about these stories that makes me happy, and I'm just discovering that in general, old school historical romances, ones that tend to lean on the slightly less problematic side, make me happy and make me excited. The plots are new and inventive in my eyes because it feels like a lot of like modern day historical romances or contemporarily written historical romances, I don't know. They're very formulaic and not in a horrible way. There have been some like advancements. There are some stories that I'm still excited to read, but I just feel like old school historical romances have a completely different vibe and energy that kind of makes me happy. I think it's fun, and I'm always excited when I pick up a Judith McNaught book. The one that I picked up after this one, Until You, not quite as good, but this one I really, really enjoyed, and it did make me happy. The next question is most beautiful book you've purchased or received this year, and I actually have purchased/received a couple of books this year that have been pretty, but I'm actually going to just say none for this one because I have not picked up any books this year for the sole purpose of them being pretty or looking good on my shelves. I really haven't purchased very many books at all this year. I think I've purchased 5 books, and the only reason I was able to purchase those 5 books is because I had sold books back to my half-price books. I had some cash and I like purchased 5 books, and those were just books that I wanted on my shelves or were first editions, but I didn't pick them up because they were pretty. All of this to say, it's okay if the books that you have are not pretty, or if you don't have any physical books at all. So I don't know, just wanted to put that out there. Not really super relevant to the tag, but I don't really have any like pretty books that I want to show off. And then the last question is, what books do you want to read or need to read by the end of the year? And for me, so many. I really made it a mission this year to read more of my physical backlist, my physical TBR. I'm well on my way to reading most of them, I think, fingers crossed. I do have a lot of them on my list for videos that I'm doing this year. I'd say my biggest focus is getting through some of these series that I have where I've read the first book and maybe haven't read the second book. The one that instantly comes to mind for me is the Six of Crows duology. I read Six of Crows, I never finished Crooked Kingdom, so it's I feel like I can't just have them on my shelves and not know what happens and just have them sitting there. I definitely need to read those books. I never finished the Grisha trilogy. I've read the first book 4 times at this point. I never read the other 2 books in the series. There are a lot of YA series like that, so I would say that is my biggest have to read. And then obviously there are some Kindle Unlimited romances that I keep seeing hyped that I am just really excited to dip my toes into. I think one of the next videos you're going to see from me is going to be a KU book video where I read books that I think are going to be 5 stars. I'm excited to get to that one. I just started that video today, so I don't know if I'm going to actually have any 5-star reads from that video, but you know, I'm being optimistic, I'm remaining optimistic, and I definitely need to read those before the end of the year. So that is it. That is my mid-year book freakout tag. Hopefully this was entertaining in some way. Hopefully you maybe found a new book to pick up from the books that I've talked about. I am gonna say you need to pick up Part of Your World by Abby Jimenez. It was just a game changer for me. Absolutely loved it. And then obviously if you haven't picked up the roughest draft, like do that too. I've talked about that one more, so I don't feel like I have to again like say that one quite as much, but either of those two are like a surefire bet in my opinion. So I'll leave links to those in the description down below if you want to check those out. But thanks so much for watching. Let me know in the comments down below what your best book of the year so far has been. I'm curious to see if I can find any new gems to read because I need some 5 stars in my life. But thanks so much for watching. I love you all so much, and until next time.